Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. This is Mr. Shakespeare here again with you. On the 27th of September 2023, I am joined today with psychic medium and remote viewer, Liz Cross. How are you doing today, Liz?
I am doing very well, thank you.
Okay, so this is a probe on the UK Prime Minister, not elected, but was chosen, Rishi Sunak. He has recently changed some of the government policies with relation to the climate bills and things like that, and diesel and petrol, which is gasoline cars. So I think I know why he's doing it, but let's find out.
All right, let's go. I've got him here.
Okay, how's he doing today?
Very well. He keeps a very clean lifestyle. Clean eating. I don't feel like he drinks very much at all. Really sticks to quite a vegetarian or vegan diet.
Okay.
For the most part.
Right. Yeah, I must say, he always looks quite healthy when you see him on, compared to some of the MPs and people you see on. He always looks. He does actually look quite. He does. I mean, you know. Anyway, all right. So let's ask him some questions. So in his speech the other day, he pushed back on some of the implications. For example, he would push the ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel cars, which is currently set to come in force in 2030, back to 2035. He would. He said the government would significantly weaken the plan to phase out the installation of gas boilers by 2035. So saying that they only want 80% to be phased out from this year, by that year. Another one which is a good thing, homeowners and landlords will be told that there'll be no new efficiency regulations on home. Ministers apparently had been considering imposing fines on landlords who fail to upgrade their properties, which would have cost them a fortune, which have only been passed on to tenants of things to a certain level of efficiency. Why has he done this? Why has he done all of this?
Why have you delayed or reversed all of these green and energy laws? Because people can't afford it. It's hurting the country.
Correct.
It's ridiculous to ask people to pay more when they can't even put food on their table. That's what he said.
Well, okay. I mean, that is a truism. People can't afford it. People were up in arms, but obviously the climate zealots and the Green Agenda Brigade have just, gone a bit crazy with all of this. And I think, to be fair, he's pushed back in line with the rest of Europe. I mean, Europe cars, I think, is 2035, so he's not going any further than that. Did he realize when he did it that it would be a potential vote winner for the Conservatives? Because, he's now up in the polls. Conservatives are up in the polls. And there's now a clear agenda difference between him and the Labour Party, who would, definitely push England or UK towards these type of regulations.
Did you realize it would make a difference in the? Yes, he knew that. He knew that it would probably make a difference in the polls. Look, at the moment over there, it's all about the economy, and to focus on anything else other than the economy is going to be Britain's downfall.
And does he know that?
That's what he said.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know whether that was you or him.
No, that was in my opinion.
Right. Okay. Well, that is another thing he's correct on.
He's not doing so bad, is he?
Well, no. What prompted him to change this? Because no one knew this was going to happen. We all thought that he was going to go along with the, with the climate agenda, the green agenda.
Did you change this? The country is in severe debt. And in order to, this actually makes a lot of sense. Here you go. In order to push this through, the country would have to bankroll a lot of these initiatives, and they can't afford it. So they would have to give money towards new cars, incentives towards new boilers. You said they're moving from gas to electric boilers?
No. They want to try and phase out gas boiler installations in new properties.
Wow.
Now I know exactly, and now they're trying to say, well, 80% has to be phased out by, I mean, most people who are aware of this, if they're going to change their boiler, they're going to do it now in the next few years. They want to change it. They don't want to go to these, so-called sustainable things. That they want their choice. They want their freedoms.
So people listening outside of the UK may not understand how big a deal that is. And
it is a big deal because there is a lot. Yeah, we were told all in the 70s, that we were changing over from coal gas essentially to natural gas coming originally from the North Sea, and now we're having to buy it in. So all of our boilers and everything we would change over, required some engineering in boilers and everything. And we were set to be doing that for, a long time. Now, a lot of people in the countryside, they don't have gas because the piped gas is not everywhere in the UK. So they have oil-fired boilers and things like that. That's quite often the case. And then obviously the worst choice is electric. If you have an electric boiler, that's the most expensive.
Oh my God. I don't think people actually comprehend in the US how expensive electricity is in the UK. Like, I remember when we lived there, and this is years ago, when we first moved into a property, I left the boiler on all the time because to me, we never have to worry about turning our boilers off here in the US, right? And then we had this little timer box, which is okay, you have it on between like 7 and 9 in the morning, and then it automatically switches off. And then you have it on in the evening when you're doing your cooking or you want to have a bath or something.
Hmm.
Well, and, sorry, my dog's barking, but they don't understand how desperate the electric situation is over there. I mean,
don't forget
even
this.
running at that, it was very expensive just to have that bloody boiler on for only 4 hours a day.
It really does depend on where you are in the US. I mean, if you are in Massachusetts or New Hampshire, you are paying more than the UK for your electric per kilowatt hour. If you happen to be in North Carolina or somewhere like that, or Washington State, you're paying a hell of a lot less. It's massively different in the US, whereas in England and United Kingdom, it isn't. So, I mean, we have online billing services and things like that where we can choose who we want to have bill us. They don't actually supply it. It's just quite weird how it works.
It's very expensive. So the fact that a lot of the UK, a lot of people like to use gas because it's a much cheaper option than electricity. But
Yes.
He's saying, we have to be the fundamental, meaning the government, the ones to implement those changes by offering financial incentives. And they can't afford it. They can't. They're broke. They're broke.
Right. Well, obviously, the people who vote, who want, the ideologues that want all this, the money side of it never seems to come into it. They don't seem to understand that, all of these things are hopelessly unachievable. We have probed oil out, and oil's going to be around for quite a while yet. So, let's just go back to his what he was saying as well. Let me just think. What was the other thing he was saying? He's apparently he's going to is this true? Ask him if this is true. Is he going? The rumor is he's going to rule out what he sees as some very burdensome recycling schemes. You know, all these recycling schemes are good, but they cost a hell of a lot of money. Is that true?
So the question is
he going to rule out some of these new proposed recycling scheme? You know, households would have had to have like 7 different bins to put different trash cans, if you like, garbage cans to put different things in. I mean, it's crazy, but
oh my God.
Seriously. Yeah. In some places now in England there are 3 or 4, there are 2 to 3 to 4 of these. You know, but apparently some regulations they wanted to bring in. Again, all of this would cost a lot of money. Is it true that he's thinking of scrapping that?
It's just not affordable.
Right.
It really isn't. Listen, there's councils over there going bankrupt.
2 have already gone bankrupt. Yeah.
Birmingham, that's huge.
Mm.
Who was the other one?
Wasn't it one down in Wiltshire somewhere or somewhere like that? Or...
Bloody Wiltshire. I mean,
maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know.
All of these things are costly, very, very costly. The earning has to be way up. And you can't ask. He's telling me we can't keep nickel and diming people on their council tax.
Well, obviously, the scary part about what he says, apart from the fact that it's all true what he says, and I 100% agree with what he says, is he's actually sounding like a real conservative prime minister. I mean, that's the scary thing that we haven't had for a long time. I mean, is he just doing this to win votes to stop Labour getting in? Is he then going to reverse it all if he gets? Because there will be an election next year, and at the moment, prior to this, the Tories probably had no chance of winning. You know, because they're blamed for everything, of course.
That's not why he's doing it.
No,
listen,
well,
he's a businessman. He knows how to run a business. His wife would know how to run a business. I mean, they're not coming from small business backgrounds. They're coming from large business backgrounds. When you're running a country, he's telling me, you have to know how to run a business.
I agree. I'm agreeing with him.
Yeah. If the businesses are not profitable, then you shut the doors of the business. He doesn't want to draw the curtain on the UK, but he says where it's headed at the moment, it's heading into full-scale bankruptcy.
Okay. Let's ask him this then. Why does he keep sending money to Ukraine? How can we afford to keep doing that?
He says because it's the right thing to do. So there he's looking at how the UK portrays itself on the world stage. And also he doesn't want to make the UK look as broke as it seems. So that's kind of a masking.
Okay. So okay.
So he doesn't want to fund. He doesn't want to fund the Ukraine, right? He really doesn't. He wants to pull the plug on the funding because he thinks that that's a waste of money. We all know what the inevitable is going to be. He says there's no way the Ukraine can win the war unless we keep funding and funding and funding. He believes, in his own personal thoughts, feelings, and opinions, Russia is just waiting for everyone to pull the plug on the funding, and then it's over. It's done.
Well, there is an element of that. Mainly the US, if the US pulled the plug on the funding tomorrow, then yeah, it would be over. But for some reason, America wants to keep sending money there.
And everybody's following suit, is what he says.
Right. But I mean, he could be, you know, in the same way that we wanted to get out of the European Union, which, you know, his predecessor was part of. But he could be one that, you know, was the first one to say, no, we're not going to fund Ukraine anymore. You know, Ukraine's not in NATO. We don't have to fund them, especially if we're bankrupt ourselves. And to send money to pretend that we can afford it, you know, whilst at the same time cutting out all the climate things by saying we can't afford it. There's a bit of a dichotomy. There's
Yeah.
Can we see that?
Right. But he is very concerned. Like when I look at him, he really is emotionally invested in the UK. I don't feel what I'm getting from him, from his energy. And, there's a lot of corrupt people.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people don't like his wife is in tax exile. I don't understand all that. I haven't read all of that. I don't know what that's about, but I've just seen some headlines. But wholeheartedly, he is truly invested in the UK emotionally. He wants the UK to be the successful place that it once was. And he's talking about lots of things are in decline. Education is in decline. He really is, education is one of his top priorities. He's saying to me, the universities are in decline. Everything is in decline over there. People cannot afford to eat. Now, off camera today, you and I had a private conversation, which will now be made public. And I asked you, what is going on over there? Because I have noticed in the last 6 months, people in the UK are really sinking, as in not financially, but in their mental health status as well. They no longer are really trying to make connections with people. It's almost like the whole country on a mental health scale. I'm not trying to make a blanket generalization, but people are sinking. And I'm talking about people with good jobs. I'm talking about people that have money in the bank, right? I'm not talking about people that live on the breadline, right? People that do all right for themselves. And suddenly they've really become quite reclusive. And I'm finding this across the board in the UK. No matter what area you live in, whether you live up north, whether you live in London, whether you live down south, it's as if people have become disposable. And I was wondering why that is. Now, as we are talking to Rishi, we're starting to understand how desperate the UK economy actually is. He can see it. He's like, we're on a one-way ticket to hell. And he has really got to turn this around. And he understands that these green things and the environment needs to take place, but it has to be done on a much slower scale than originally projected, because it just cannot be done. You can't ask people to pay more, is what he's telling me.
Well, that's all very true. Has he any plans to, in any way, reintegrate the United Kingdom with the EU?
Absolutely not.
Good.
No, he says that would be the death knell for the country.
Correct.
Okay.
My God, I'm agreeing with every single thing this guy says.
Is he going to run again? Probably. Are you planning?
If he carries on like this, he would get my vote, I can tell you.
He is planning to run again. He actually knows what, listen, I know Boris screwed up, right? But I lived in London when Boris was the mayor, and he really cleaned London up. Whether people want to admit it or not, London changed within a year. He got rid of a lot of riffraff, and he cleaned up the streets. I mean, he did a good job, but then that whole thing over the lockdown, and then he's having parties and drinks and birthday cakes. And,
yeah, also he's not the mayor anymore, and the guy there now is absolutely crucifying London, bringing in ULEZ and charges and every,
Oh, I saw that.
Something needs to be done about him, I can tell you.
I mean, he's been mayor for a very, very long time now. We're talking about Khan. And will he continue? Let's ask. Let's move Khan out. I'm going to move Khan out because people are leaving London. Businesses are leaving London. They're not going to pay those charges. They're not willing to keep shelling out money. You've got office towers and office buildings that are not being used anymore. And I saw where Facebook actually abandoned one of their buildings, their leases. They were like, nobody's coming to work anymore. We actually don't need this building. So let's move Khan out. Let's go out by what? How many years? 3, 4 years?
4.
4 years. Okay, so let's go. I don't even know what day it is anymore.
27th of September.
September 27th, 2027, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Are you still mayor of London? No. They've brought in a more conservative mayor.
Good. What's happened to all the ULEZ schemes? And are they all still around?
What's happened?
The ultra low emission zones, which he's been instrumental in doing.
Those are still around. That's a big money maker for the city. Don't forget. Listen.
Oh, I know that, but it's killing people. I mean, on the one, £12.50 a day if you don't have the right vehicle, really.
And they've extended that zone all the way out. All the way out. I mean, is that like the congestion charge? Is that the same?
No, that's separate.
So you have to pay that in addition to the congestion charge.
Yeah.
If your vehicle doesn't meet the required
standard. It's got to be Euro 6 compliant, which means that for a diesel, it's got to be about 2016, 2017 on, and for a petrol, that could be older. That could be 2011, 2012, something like that. So it's got to be Euro 6. Again, we're adhering to these ridiculous emission standards from the European Union, which are strangling the engines, making them, unbelievable. I mean, the things they have to do to get these down. But the Euro 6 is the one that matters. If you're Euro 6 compliant, you don't have to pay the ULEZ charge. Or if your vehicle is over 40 years old, apparently. So you could have a smoking old bandit from 40 odd years old and you can claim exemption and you'll get it because of the age of the vehicle. So it's got nothing to do with emissions. It's all to do with control and tax. Nobody believes it's to do with the emissions.
And they're making a lot of money out of it.
Well, the money apparently, I mean, Khan is told to do it. He's just a puppet as well. Whoever his globalist masters are getting him to do this. But a lot of this money apparently goes into, so I've been told, goes into funding Transport for London, which is basically the London, the public service for the trains, the tubes, the buses. I believe some of that goes there because obviously they don't charge and they don't levy a correct market rate on all the fares and everything. It is subsidized. So this is, it's the car drivers subsidizing the bus users, I believe.
Listen, if the transport in London was reliable, people wouldn't have to use cars.
It's not just that. Transport in London is generally reliable, actually.
You say that, but have you been on a London bus lately? They're packed to the gills.
Well, right? They are, but yeah, because the people they can't afford to, that is the cheapest form of transport, a bus.
They're packed to the gills. I mean, you can't even get on them. Sometimes they stop and there's no room to get on the buses, and they put all the prices up. And then I read something earlier. Hopefully, one of our listeners will be able to chime in on the comments. where they're going to do away with a day pass, a day card. I mean, the tubes are packed. It's just crazy to me. I think having a car in London is essential. Now, I didn't live in central London. Obviously, if you live right in central London, Westminster, the Square Mile, anything like that, that's different. But certainly in the outer zones, I think
The
having
outer zones, they're more, not so much right in the centre. I mean, right in the centre, you can literally walk, or tubes are pretty. I mean, it depends on the time of day. Obviously, in a rush hour, the tubes are full. You can go during the day, and they're not so bad because everybody's at work.
But the amount of time it takes to bus everywhere or get to the tube station, jump on the tube, take the tube in, to me, a car is much faster if it's outside of the rush hour time. So I drive. Driving in London, for those of you, for those of you outside of the UK, it's not easy. I had a friend, I had a friend of ours that was going over, and our kids are friends, and he said, "You know what, Liz? You can drive in London. I can drive in London. If you could do it, so can I." And I was like, "Listen, I don't think you understand. First of all, you're on the wrong side of the road. Second of all, whereas in the US, we rely upon signs on the side of the road, right? In London, all of your laws, or a lot of your laws, are on the road. So you have to understand the road markings. I said, I don't think you're going to be able to really pull this off. It takes a long time to really learn how to drive over there. Well, what do? They leave Heathrow Airport. He hits the curb as soon as he gets onto M25, crashed the car. And he sent me a message. He says, 20 minutes outside of Heathrow Airport, this cabbie is done. Because it's not easy driving in London. But I quite enjoy it. Anyway, yeah. What Let's ask, has the traffic been significantly reduced down, with these ULEZ charges, with the congestion charges in London? That's a no. So looking 4 years out, it hasn't actually made a difference. Has the air quality really improved? And that is also another no.
Well, the air quality isn't that bad, to be fair, in London anymore.
It's bad. Last time we were there, we were coughing and choking.
Yeah, but how long ago, Liz? How long ago was that?
It was about 3 years, 4 years ago.
Okay.
It wasn't that bad. It was right before.
I don't think it's that bad now. I mean, it depends. I mean, in rural America, then obviously compared to that, then London is. But then, I would argue you could go to New York, you could go to Paris, you could go to Rome, you could go to all these places, but it's the same. The problem is there's a lot of people who live in these cities.
Yeah. Have a lot of businesses abandoned renting office space in London? No. So I'm getting a no on that, which surprises me. So have people gone back to work, or are they still working from home? They're still working from home.
So, well, the thing is, London is the capital, isn't it? So, there's always going to be people that want to move and live. I mean, I've lived in London a few times. Do I want to live there again? No. But, a lot of people do. And there's nothing quite like it. But then there's nothing like New York. There's nothing like Paris. There's nothing, all of these big capitals have, something about them that people like. So, anyway.
Well, there you go. So it looks like Rishi
Rishi looks like he's trying to be a proper conservative prime minister.
Are the conservatives still in power? No.
No, oh dear. When did they lose the election?
When did they lose the election? 24.
Okay. Was it a fair election, or was it rigged?
Was it a fair election? Well, yes, it was fair.
Okay. So do we have a Labour Prime Minister now?
Do you have a Labour Prime Minister now? Yes.
Oh, dear. Are we anywhere? Is he still an MP?
Is Rishi still an MP? Yes.
Labour trying to get us back into the EU, either surreptitiously or through the back door or front door, anyway.
Is Labour trying to get us back in the EU? Are Labour trying to get us back into the EU? Yes.
Okay.
That's a problem.
That's a major problem.
You will never fix the economy if Labor can. I'm not I don't care one way or the other, but if you guys are trying to rejoin the EU after all that rigmarole of getting out, I just, oh God, what a nightmare. The country's already got enough problems, let alone trying to have referendums on whether we should rejoin the EU.
We don't need a referendum. We had once. We wanted to leave, and that should be the end of it. They shouldn't. When they don't get the answer they want, they have another referendum. I mean, well, why don't we have another referendum? We don't want Labour, so let's have another vote. Another general election. I mean, it's the same thing, isn't it?
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So it looks like you may get another referendum on the table in years to come about rejoining the EU. We tried to leave, it didn't work. Now we need to see if we need to rejoin. Were we economically, right? That's what they're going to say. That's what I'm pulling from the information. This is not me. This is what I'm pulling. Were we economically better off when we were in the EU? And what is the majority of the people going to say? I think they're going to say no.
No, of course we were not. We had to pay the EU about God knows how much a day for their slush funds. We are never better in the EU. The EU as an institution is something we should not be in ever again.
Well, I know from a police point of view, it was very difficult for officers to do their job. And what I mean by that is you were arresting the same people over, which is normal. I know there's officers out there listening. Yes, I know that's normal. But when you're arresting them for serious crimes like terrorism, GBH, people are getting a slap on the wrist. And that was due to, well, they have a right to life and they have a right to exist. And as long as they show remorse, or, the terrorist who has an ankle tag and has a curfew and is being investigated because they're, involved in a highly prolific terrorist group, well, they have a right to family life. So they can actually apply to bring all their family over. It was very frustrating. And it just felt like in the police, you were banging your head against a brick wall, right? I know they just had a big thing over there where officers, armed response units, whenever they have to use, and let me tell you, as a very last resort, did they, resolve an issue using a weapon? Because that's not how the UK rolls, right? And even then, it's automatic suspension and investigation. So I know that there was this big thing this week about the officers, automatic suspension. Like, why do you want us to be armed officers if you won't even allow us to do our job? Or we're already guilty until proven innocent. There's a lot of problems. I mean, there's a lot of problems everywhere, but that is an issue because, of course, Mr. Shakespeare, as you know, the criminals always have guns. Even though the police do not carry guns, the criminals always have guns, always. So, where do you go? But it looks like you guys are going to end up I say you guys, obviously it affects me as well because I have family over there. But it looks like they're heading back into another referendum to rejoin the EU. So, anything else you would like to know?
No, I think that's all we need to do for today. Thank you.
All righty, I'll stop this one here. Thank you so much.